Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov's chess channel and welcome to the Magnus Carlsen Chess Tour in 2020. We are now again in the semi-final stage. It's Magnus Carlsen versus Liren, and in the first game Magnus Carlsen surprisingly lost. He played really a bad game and now he played with the white pieces against Liren. So he played the London system, and the London I've noticed that Magnus is using when he's in trouble, when he's behind, when he has to chase his opponent. Because I'm not sure when I've seen Magnus Carlsen losing in the London system. I think the last time that I saw that it was against Levon Aronan in 2019. But the London system, and I've promised you that I've analyzed the London system from White's perspective on my YouTube chess channel. So I have now the French defense series going on. So when we finish the French, then we'll analyze the London from White's perspective. What to say about the London? The London, if your opponent doesn't play the move c5, then basically the game is a positional game. Then black doesn't challenge you immediately around the square d4. If your opponent misses to play this aggressive c5, if he plays passive moves, then the London is sort of a positional game. So Liren, of course, a great tactician, will choose this c5 line, and it's really a good line to play against the London, because I think you have to crack the position immediately with the move c5 in order to make something happen against Magnus Carlsen's London, because as I said, he's really the beast in this opening. So let's check out now the game. We're starting again round 2 fight. So if d4 played by Magnus, we have knight to f6 by Ding, knight to f3, d5, and now we have bishop to f4. The London system, as I said, the idea here is positional idea, first of all, because what black needs to do in some occasions is to play the move bishop to d6. But if we evaluate the strength of our bishops in this types of static position, because we have now the static center setup, it means when your pawns are like this. So you see this pawn it's on the light square. We have here a pawn on the dark square. If, for instance, black plays something like e6, then he locks a little bit his light square bishop, and even if black forces a trade of bishops on d6 after potential e3 and bishop to d3, our light square bishop is perfectly fine. Black's light square bishop is a little bit bad because it's blocked out by its own pawn on e6. So you see, it's a really great idea, this London system. It forces basically black to give up his good bishop, because this bishop on f8 is a good one, because after e6 it has a very nice diagonal. But first of all, this bishop needs really to compete with this bishop on f4. As I said, it's all about bishops and pawns in this London system, and I like these types of positions. And as I said, we'll analyze the London from White in the future of my YouTube chess channel. But Ding plays here this very aggressive c5. So as I said, now the game is not so positional. The game is already tactical. In the game e3, we have e6. Maybe a better choice for black is here the move knight to c6, immediately challenging the move d4. So the evaluation is the same, but as I said, I really like this line for black, where you immediately, but really immediately challenge white center on d4. In the game e6 was played, and you see now c3. So what white is doing here is, of course, builds this very nice and firm structure here on dark squares, still with possibilities after bishop to d6. Here Magnus played the move knight to d2. What you could also do is, as I said, go into a positional trades of pieces. After something like knight to c6, we could go bishop takes c6, b takes c6, bishop takes d6, queen to d6, and maybe castling bishop to a6. But now we get our rook to e1, and although this bishop has a good activity, this bishop on a6, one of the best ideas to battle against the bishop is to get out of the range of the bishop. So although, as I said, the bishop has a good activity, but it doesn't have a clear target. So what white is, of course, trying to do is now to create a very powerful outpost on e5. So these are the normal ideas. So here c3 played by Magnus. As I said, bishop to d6, knight to d2, and we have now c takes d4. Magnus takes the bishop on d6, but now Ding counterattacks with d takes e3, a very interesting line, which is also suggested by the stock finish engine. After bishop to a3, Magnus, of course, doesn't want to lose now the bishop, but stays on this diagonal where he prevents kingside castling by Ding, and we have now e takes d2, queen to d2, and now knight to c6. Okay, let's stop and evaluate the position a little bit, because it's really a weird one. I'm not sure if I've ever seen this particular line played so far. So after the move knight to c6, what black has gained here is, of course, the pawn central control. It means, as a strategical idea, black wants to make the move e5, and then these two pawns, if they get connected, then they're of course restricting a very nice four squares here in the center. I'm using this term many times in my videos, but as I said, I just wanted to imagine if black manages to make that move happen, then you could be really kicked away by this pawn central storm that black has created here. But still, Magnus has the bishop pair, so in the game he tried queen to g5, here rook to g8. Ding cannot castle anyway on the king side, so that's why he's protecting the pawn with the rook, and we have now bishop to d3, h6 kicking away the queen, and now queen to e3. Here Ding played queen to b6. Of course, Magnus doesn't want to take the queen, because if the queens are off the board after potential a takes b6 and bishop to b5, here king to d8 is a possibility, and we can simply play with our king to c7. So if you play even maybe something like, I don't know, bishop to d7, I'm not seeing a good way how white should make progress here. But the point is that Magnus doesn't have to take the queen, of course. A better idea, I believe, here for Ding is the move knight to g4. Kicking away the queen after something like queen to c5. I believe that Magnus would have played this move. Then I think knight to e5, again a simplification line. After bishop to b5, we could simply force the trades of bishops, and now maybe to play something like knight to c6, because we need the protection of the e7 square, and then finally play something like queen to c7, queen to b6, and castling. But in the game, as I said, queen to b6 was played by Ding, and what he's trying to do now is queenside castling. But I think that black could have stayed a little bit longer here in the center. The king is not endangered so far. After queen to e2, Magnus is trying, of course, to stay with the queens on the board. Bishop to d7, kingside castling, and we have now queenside castling. Again, an opposite side at that game. So as I said, after the move c5, the London is not the positional opening anymore. It's really now an open game where we have this opposite side attack games, and who is faster now on the attack will probably win the game. So that's why Magnus b4 immediately. Even if you have to sacrifice some pawns, if you have to play something like c4, b5, and if you could just imagine if white loses the pawn, for instance, on b5, then we can always play the move rook to b1, in which we can really use our rooks on the open and semi-open file. So this b5 attacks and maybe c4 attacks are really common in this opposite side attack games, where you really sacrifice one particular pawn in order really to create a dynamic position and dangerous attacks against your opponent's king. So king to b8, again, not the most accurate move by Ding Liren, and this move causes him now many troubles, because Magnus, after the move king to b8, has the move b5. Better idea here for Ding is maybe to play the move e4, because if now b5 happens, then at least you have e4, a counterattack after b takes c6, bishop to c6, and still black will get the piece back after something like knight to d4. We have e takes d3 and queen to d3. Now I think that black could try something like knight to d7, knight to e5, maybe even knight to c5. Although this is a bad bishop, but this bishop can be improved with bishop to d7, and will still have a good control all over the board. So, as I said, queenside castling played by here in this particular position, and pardon me, here kingside castling, queenside castling, and b4, king to b8, and now b5 by Magnus. He uses now the moment immediately in order to gather tempo, because after knight to f5, if we evaluate the position, who is faster now on the attack? I believe, of course, it's white, because white has already the pawn on the 5th rank. Black didn't counterattack here with potential g5 moves, so black is a little bit slower. And as I said, in this opposite side attack games, it's all about tempos. It's all about who is faster on the attack. So knight to e5. Now Magnus, of course, uses this moment immediately, centralize the knight on a very active squares. This is really a great knight, and bishop to e8. bishop to b4, we have rook to c8, and now a4. Now comes really the critical moment of the game. It was a huge blunder by Ding Liren. He played the move knight to e4, which loses immediately. Here, better idea, I believe, queen to c7, simply attacking the knight, because probably what Magnus has calculated here is a potential c4 move, and the problem is you cannot take knight takes c4 after bishop takes c4, d takes c4, but now rook to c1 is very dangerous here for black, because rook takes c4 will happen. But there is one great counterattack possibility after the move c4, now to play the move knight to e4, because if you take bishop takes e4, you say we can take d takes e4, and after queen to e4, now we can take with the knight and simply go into a simplified line, knight to c4, queen to c4, and this would be probably a draw. But Ding played here really this risky move. After the move a4, he played knight to e4, and now it's a bad position because he tried f6 to counterattack, to attack the very active knight on e5. But now Magnus, of course, finds a great counterattack, queen to h7, attacking the rook. In the game, knight to b3, a desperate try, but now queen takes b8, rook to a1. And here I want you to pause the video and find really a great move now for Magnus, because of course what Ding was hoping for is if Magnus retreats with the knight, then he can also retreat with this knight. So let's see now. Let's get another Mortal Kombat sound. Test your might and find a great tactic here that Magnus, of course, saw and won the game immediately, and Ding Liren resigned. So the move is, of course, among many moves. There are many great moves, but I like this move that Magnus found. He played simply queen takes e8. So sacrificing the queen, if you take rook takes e8, then we have a knight to d7, the fork, and we can simply take. And now if you retreat, we can simply again also retreat with our knight. So white is continuing the game with an extra piece, so it was game over. If in this position, if you try something like knight to c2, I think again it's over, because we have again the same idea, knight to d2, the fork. We can simply take the first, pardon me, here it's the winning line among many winning lines, so it's also here winning for white. So great attack by Magnus. So still no one has taken down this very annoying London system. As I said, I believe it was Levan Aronian, prove me if I'm wrong, in 2019. Levan Aronian won that tournament with a really great queen sacrifice. I'm really not sure when Magnus Carlsen has lost the last game in the London. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. It was a very instructive chess game, how you can make mistakes in the London. But I like still this idea of Ding Liren to go with the aggressive c5 move, not allow white to go and build this firm pawn structure, c3, d4, e3 ideas, and he went aggressively into the game, missed some tactics, but okay, maybe he can improve this line and battle against the world champion in this very aggressive opening. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. Meanwhile, you can watch my other commented chess games from this tournament. Here's the link, and you can also watch my best chess games of all time if you want to see the best chess games that have been ever played in chess history. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.